3, 4, 5 years younger than them. And they were from the Jane and Finch community as well as the Jane and Shepherd community. And surprisingly enough, for many of us, we know what kind of neighborhood Jane and Finch and Jane and Shepherd might be. It is known for a lot of gang violence. It is statistically the highest, aside from Malvern and from Scarborough, it is one of the highest violence and corruption zones in all of the GTA. There's rampant violence problems with gangs, and there's also problems with drugs and all sorts of illegal operations that happen in these neighborhoods. But it is also known that in these neighborhoods, amongst some of the poorest in Toronto. And one thing that we realized, and a lot of us realized, that though they were poor physically, maybe with money and material possessions, that they were so rich as people. There was so much to learn about other people other than Korean people up here in Vaughan, Thornhill, Woodbridge, North York. Where some of us, too, are living maybe hard lives in a different matter. But some of us as well are living very comfortable lives compared to some of these children might. And we have two testimonies today, one from one of our students who both participate in both the Sunshine Day Camp and also VBS at University Presbyterian Church. And we have one from Native Missions. How many of us know that we are children of God? If you look to the person on your left and right, not only have they Christ in their life, but they are also children of God. And as we quickly learned through these mission fields, that there are so many more members of the family that are yet to be found. That there are so many children yet to be found in Jesus Christ. And it is outside the Korean community even. And in the Jane and Finch and Jane and Shepherd area. And also at Temiskaming in Quebec. We have yet so much to learn about so many people. The third mission field was Temiskaming Native Missions. And we'll just have a slideshow in just a moment. But Temiskaming Native Mission, how many of us know where Temiskaming is? How many of us know where Temiskaming is? Just a raise of hand, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4. The rest of us have no idea where that is. Where's Temiskaming? Temiskaming is about 7 hours drive up north, and for some of us, we've never even knew that you can go that far up north in Canada, maybe. But we drive up 6 to 7 hours up north every summer to be with a community called Temiskaming, just at the border of Quebec and Ontario. For some of us, we only know Toronto. We only know Vaughan. We only know Thornhill. We only know the neighborhoods around us. And that if it's outside of Toronto, we get shocked and think, wow, people live out here? There's civilization out here? Yes, there is. And when we get to Temiskaming, that there is a beautiful neighborhood, and that is filled with Native Canadian First Nations people. And for some of us, we only look at the stereotypes of what Native people might look like. We label them as Indians, which is a derogatory term. It is actually quite inappropriate. They are not really Indians. but we call them First Nations people. We call them natives. A people who have been here in the land of Canada far beyond even 200-300 years ago. Hundreds of years they have been here in this land. And unfortunately, many of us have not encountered meeting any of these people. And surprisingly enough, at Timiskaming Native Reserve, that there was a total of maybe 5 Christians out of the entire reserve, 5 Christians out of the entire reserve of close to 600 people. In Timiskaming alone, there's around 600 folks. And then in the community just around the reserve, there's another 900. That's almost 1,500 Native people. And amongst that, up to 95 to 98% have never been to church or ever heard the gospel. On that reserve, there has never been a church built. And in order to go to a church, other than a Catholic service that happens maybe every 2 weeks, Catholic Mass, there is no other church for another 20 kilometers from that location. 20 kilometers. There's no other church. What a mission zone that is. And we as Vaughan Community Church have devoted ourselves and committed ourselves to delivering the gospel, to plant those seeds every single summer and even throughout the year as we continue to build relationships and friendships with people. And this summer, I think a lot of our youth who had went up, 14 of our youth had gone up. 14. And each and one of them had come back with such a heart and conviction to continue on and press on sharing the gospel there. And I hope that today it might inspire you to go on these missions, to participate, to pray for these missions. And even if you can't go physically, maybe even to donate for these missions. Your time, maybe your money, your resources, maybe your ideas. And everything goes so many miles, 350 miles to be exact, to Timiskaming, Quebec. If we could just have the slideshow come on today. Before we call two of our testimonies to come up, so I want to share with you about 2 names that come to mind. First is a gentleman named Steve. And God willing enough, Steve, who was the son of a pastor. Could you imagine, out of all those people there on that reserve, there was a gentleman who had a pastor as a father. But for many, many, many years, even though his father was so devoted to Christ, he never paid attention to the gospel. But it is through our native missions team that this man, for the very first time, came kneeling down and crying and devoting himself to the Lord. Could you imagine if we had never gone there? If we, as a church, were not obedient to follow the Lord up to that reserve? It wouldn't be a wife, but his common law partner had previously just lost a baby.